Evans, November 4th, 2019. I'm Brian Rudy, the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Present.
Councilmember Spear?
Here.
Councilmember Mortensen?
Here.
Councilmember Castle?
Here.
Councilmember Neal?
Present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a proclamation for the Sister City. Whereas the Sister City program, inaugurated by President Dwight D. Eisenhower of the United States of America in 1956 to establish, maintain, and foster greater friendship and understanding between the people of the United States and other nations throughout the medium of direct personal contact. And whereas the modern concept of town twining was conceived in Europe in 1947 to maintain and foster the same goals and aspirations, and whereas to facilitate and maintain world peace, cities, their elected officials, and their citizens need to collaborate internationally. Whereas the city of Evans in 1986 resolved to establish Ashby de la Zouch County of Leicester, England, as an official sister city and mutually agree to strengthen international relations and promote goodwill and understanding among all their people. And whereas the city of Evans City Council wishes to strengthen international business links, share ideas, and encourage exchanges of our citizens that will lead to a lasting friendship between our people. Whereas countless city, county, and state governments and their leaders have been involved in global relationships due to sister cities. Whereas Councilmember Fred Neal will be traveling to sister city Ashby de la Zouch, County of Leicester, England. Now, therefore, I, Brian Rudy, by the virtue of authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Evans, Colorado, do hereby reaffirm and proclaim that Ashby de la Zouch, County of Leicester, England, is an official sister city of the city of Evans and recognize the various and common community interests our citizens by fostering a better climate for an international understanding. I'm going to present this to Councilmember Neal, who will be heading over there. Fred, when are you leaving? And if you want to talk a little bit about your trip, that would be fantastic. I'm going to present you with the proclamation. Fred will be giving this to their city when he gets over there in England in a few months, weeks.
Tomorrow. Leaving for London tomorrow. And History Colorado is actually coordinating this tour, and we're going to visit 3 sister cities of Colorado cities in England, 1 in Belgium, and 1 in France. I'm looking forward to it a lot. I think it's going to be very interesting and fun to do.
Thank you, Fred. We all hope that you have an amazing time over there. It is a fun place. I've been to England. You're going to have a great time. And thank you for representing us and the citizens of Evans. Very much appreciated. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Thank you.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 7, consent agenda. Item A, approval of the October 15th, 2019 City Council meeting minutes. And B, consideration of ordinance number 706-19, an ordinance amending the city code regarding the offense of criminal trespass, second reading.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 8, old business. Public hearing, continuation of the public hearing on the special use permit for Best Way to Store. I will reopen the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, members of the council. Staff has an application requesting a special use permit for a self-storage facility for commercial mailing operations. So there's a little retail in the front on the southeast corner of of 37th Street and Harbor Lane. The property is currently zoned, it's a C2 commercial district, which allows this use by special review. Use by special review also requires approval from the planning commission and also from the council, both. And so accordingly, the city and the applicant had scheduled this for tonight. It had been noticed. Very recently, the applicant has approached the city with some requested phasing and some minor changes to the application. We need some more time to work through that with them. So per our rules, if you so choose, you can reschedule this item for a date certain, which we're recommending as December 17th, without having to renotice the public hearing, which would incur some expense. So that's all we have, and we do recommend that you continue this public hearing until December 17th, 2019, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. While this is a public hearing, is there anyone who came in the audience tonight who wishes to speak on this issue in favor of? Please step up to the podium and state your name and address, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Stephen Grant, 2405 Dock Drive, Evans, Colorado. We are the home that is closest in proximity to this development. We are directly across the street, and so we and a handful of other homes would be directly impacted by this. I do want to speak in favor of it. It seems to me that both with myself as well as with the rest of the neighborhood, that the applicant has been very open and very communicative with us. It seems to be a well-developed project. It also, in its use, seems to have a very fair impact on the infrastructure, the traffic, the roads, the access to the neighborhoods. All those types of things really do look good, and they've really done a good job of trying to work. So I'm speaking in favor. I do have only one concern, and it has to do with Harbor Lane. When Harbor Lane was originally laid out, northbound to 37th Street, there was a left turn lane, and then there was a right turn straight lane that was at that intersection going northbound. And this allowed for the flow of traffic, especially during high intensity areas. Now that has been restriped, and there is a bike lane and only one lane, and that bottlenecks up at high traffic times and is a problem. So that may need to be looked at with regard to the traffic and so forth. But other than that, I have no concerns. I'm for the project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here. And if council does decide to continue it, hopefully you can be back on December 17th for that. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this issue? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? Thank you. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to continue the public hearing to consider approval of the special use permit for Best Way 2 Stores application to the December 17th, 2019 City Council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing to consider approval of the special use permit for Best Way Storage application to the December 17th, 2019 City Council meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, item 9, new business. Public hearing, consideration of resolution number 28-2019, a resolution approving the special use permit for the extraction oil and gas T-bone pad. I will open the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. For this one, I will immediately turn the presentation over to Assistant City Manager Randy Reedy and our Interim Planning Manager Ann Bess Johnson to make the staff presentation.
Process comment. This is a resolution before you. However, code does require a public hearing. Matter was discussed by the Planning Commission, but their draft minutes impact. staff will make a brief presentation about the process. There are two sections of code that deal with it. The applicant has a presentation dealing with the site plan criteria.
Good evening, Mayor of the City Council. Again, Beth Johnson, Borough City Manager.
Promotion.
Big promotion.
Promoted here.
Interim planning. There we go. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to refer to the special use permit process as SUP. It's just shorter, it condenses that word, but that's what it stands for. And again, as Randy indicated, that staff's presentation is going to focus on the criteria for approval. There are several sections of the code that reference criteria for approval for a standard SUP as well as an oil and gas SUP. So this slide outlines the city's SUP process. The general steps that staff follow are on this slide. There are many steps and reviews that take place here at City Hall with interaction between the applicant and staff. Applications for an SUP are reviewed by planning, engineering, economic development, public works, as well as outside referral agencies, which include fire, police, the city of Greeley on this particular case, and the Weld County. Now, sections of the land use code that each SUP application is reviewed against include section 1806060C. And because Extraction has submitted an oil and gas SUP application, standards and criteria found in section 1806080 also apply. A complete application submittal was made by Extraction on August 13th. The review and referral process ensures that the application is consistent with development standards found in Chapter 1808 of the Municipal Code. The development is consistent with the SUP process found in the Code. Referral agencies have an opportunity to review the application materials and to offer comments that can help strengthen the application of the proposed change in land use and have the opportunity to review the application. 65 property owners were notified of this particular application. Planning staff also has the opportunity to review the land use to ensure consistency with the plan as well as the land use code for the city of Evans. The applicant will present this evening as well. Decisions made by staff, planning commission, and the city council are directed by the land use code through specific criteria for approval. And the criteria are going to overview. The project site is located west of and adjacent to 47th Avenue. Determined to be, I believe, non-jurisdictional by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and they will accept just basic stormwater drainage from the site. Again, there's several public notice required in the code, and for this particular land use case, public notice went above and beyond. Surrounding property owners within 500 feet were notified on August 14th that an application was received. Also, and those are just sent by first-class mail. Then on October 9th, we held an internal design review meeting. On October 10th and 26th, the property was reposted because a sign blew down because of snow or high wind, and then on the hearing. On October 11th, the notice was published in the Greeley Tribune, and then the planning commission hearing was on the 22nd of October, and here we are tonight. So the request for you this evening is for special use for oil and gas extraction in high intensity commercial zone district, or the C3 zone district. An oil and gas intent found in section 1806080B includes 5 statements which have to be proven in order for an application to proceed. The first is to recognize that oil and gas wells are a necessary facet of natural energy production. The second is to ensure the rights to extract petroleum resources from the earth. The third is to recognize and ensure the rights to develop the surface estate. The fourth is to ensure that the proposed land use is compatible with environment and the community. and to protect the public from hazards of oil and gas well drilling and development. And applications again were submitted, reviewed, and revised and meet these conditions. There's a standard oil and gas development code, and tonight we're going to go through each set of these standards. So again, we just discussed the legislative intent, which is found in item B on this slide. And some of the details is that the state of Colorado has the authority to regulate what happens on the subsurface. The city of Evans has the authority to regulate what's happening on the standards for compatibility and protection of the adjacent wetlands. The applicant has proposed traffic movement to be right in and right out only to minimize any potential conflicts in traffic movement. The facility will utilize pipelines to transport natural gas and crude off-site. The applicant and the owner of the 7th to accommodate future expansion plans, including a potential roundabout at that intersection. The sound wall to be installed during exploration and development of the site will lights and noise from properties in the area. The applicant has provided landscaping and berms as the surface use. And the owner of the surface estate has requested a cedar fence to be placed on top of the berms for additional screening. They're not going to be just those rectangles. They're going to be a little bit more natural in appearance. The plans, which is what the city of Evans has reviewed. So the next slide regarding criteria for approval, these are the standard criteria for approval for a regular SU of the city of Evans. The information on the previous as well as the next three are criteria that have to be met before staff planning. On this particular slide, staff and referral agencies found that the applicant met these criteria. The first one, our best management practices proposed in the application materials include the following mitigating measures to protect properties and inhabitants. Sound wall construction, electronic motors will be utilized to help reduce noise. The state of Colorado's requirements per the applicant statement. Crude oil and natural gas will be piped off-site to minimize truck traffic, and really pipeline transmission of natural gas is the way to do it. The second item, B, the city's economy will be diversified from well production as well as sales tax by an estimated $1.7 million. The Fire Protection District and School District will also benefit from the application. The comprehensive plan does not specifically address oil and gas development. However, on page 3 of the 2010 plan, it addresses the importance of creating a balanced mix of land uses. And page 2 and policy 1.10, which is to develop a network of continuous and direct streets, walkways, and bicycle lanes. The applicant is proposing a 10-foot wide trail that will go along the property frontage along 37 and 47. And that will be a cash in lieu. So once the streets are constructed, adequate public facilities, including an efficient transportation system, again, that right in, right out, the sidewalk, those support that goal. Policy 1.9 is to continue to require developers to provide traffic impact studies and improvements to mitigate the impacted systems. I think we've discussed that this evening, that they are doing that, and a development agreement will be required within 90 days of this hearing should this application be approved. And for item D, the applicant recognizes that the plans on adjacent properties for future development, as well as the plans of the surface estate for the future development. The applicants have been working with the surface estate owner, and their plans for future development have been incorporated into this application. Item E, sign off from the Army Corps of Engineers has been met. Item F, City of Evans Engineering has reviewed the application and providing comments which were incorporated into conditions of approval and development standards. Item G, there are no similar uses in the neighborhood. A note for items H, I, and K, those are not applicable to oil and gas development. And then item J, The city has reviewed landscape plans, and the applicant resubmitted to ensure that the view corridors for visual mitigation were screened from adjacent properties. And the applicant will show you those 3D visual simulations on their slides. All right, so the next item, conditions of approval or criteria for approval. These really deal with building permits and when a building permit is required, and conditions of approval and development standards address these. And the applicant's aware that they will apply for building permits as necessary. This next item falls for criteria for approval for oil and gas development. Item 3A, the applicant, once they receive approval from the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, they'll provide evidence of that approval to the city. Item B, the applicant acknowledges this requirement and has clustered the development in the southeastern portion of the property. They did work with the owner of the surface estate, and they follow the rules and regulations of the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. The applicant will discuss removing some other wells in the area and how, again, they're clustering all that development in the southeastern portion to reduce the overall surface impact. For item 3C, the development agreement will contain the required insurance information and bonding information. Item 3D, the development agreement again contains that required bonding information. 3E, the application submittal and requested revisions by staff throughout the review process have been met by the applicant. On 3F, the applicant provided a copy of an easement, a right-of-way agreement, a surface use agreement between Extraction Oil and Gas and Richmark Real Estate Partners dated May 29, 2018. And then item 4, chapter 19.44 is actually not found in the municipal code anymore. However, the application procedures, criteria for approval for a special use permit have been adhered to. And we're getting down to the end of these exciting slides here on criteria. Staff did find that the criteria for approval discussed on the previous slides have been met. Planning Commission also found that the criteria were met. Referral agencies provided comments, and the DRT internal team meeting provided comments which were provided to the applicant, and they're continuing to address those. The staff report and Planning Commission recommendation contains conditions of approval and development standards which do support the city code. The staff report provided, I believe on Friday to you, contained a few red lines because there were 2 criteria for approval that needed to be met prior to having this hearing this evening. The applicant did meet those criteria, and so they've now been incorporated as regular development standards and criteria for approval. So so those 2 items were addressed. They are a change from the Planning Commission recommendation. So should you make a motion in favor of this application this evening, the motion just needs to reflect the amended comments. And that concludes staff's comments and presentation. If you have any questions of staff, we're happy to answer those. And I know that the applicant also has a presentation for you.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to present their position, please?
Good evening. My name is Troy Owens, and I'm the development engineer for the T-Bone project for Extraction Oil and Gas. And I'll go ahead and get started. Just a little bit about Extraction. We were founded in 2012, and we work exclusively in Colorado, mostly up in the Greeley, Evans, Windsor area. This graphic's a little older, probably closer to 100 and 110,000 barrels per day, not 80,000, but yeah, we strive to be the state leader in working together with communities to safely operate and produce the energy we need. A little bit about siting this pad, the T-Bone pad. A lot went into it. We're going to develop about 2 square miles of resources from this pad. We also worked very closely with the surface owner, Richmark, to not hinder their future plans, sorry, and also abide by all the rigorous state rules and setbacks, as well as there's wetlands and floodplains going through here. And we also tried to maximize the distance from our pad to the existing homes and neighborhoods around here. And here is a diagram of the pad and our planned traffic route here. We're planning 22 wells here, each will be 2 miles long. We're gonna bring all of our BMPs down for this pad. And just real quick, we did host a neighborhood meeting with, we invited 788 homes to attend. Most of these, I think all of these neighborhoods that are shown here were invited. 17 people came, and they were mostly just local residents just wanting to know more information of where the pad was and kind of what went into oil and gas. And probably the biggest concern was the traffic route. I guess we've heard this 37th Street and 47th Avenue intersection can be pretty congested and even a little dangerous. But so we committed to the right in, right out here to try to help mitigate that, that danger. Let's see. And here is a diagram of the actual T-bone pad. This is what it will look like after we're done drilling and doing the reclamation. And you can see we've got some landscaping going up along 37th and 47th here. This was also something we determined while working with the city, that it would be better to screen right from the road rather than just plant around the pad, try to block more. And we've also included a berm and more landscaping on this side here, as there was a little window that the neighbors to the north could look into the pad. So we just tried to screen it a little more there. And these will be 6-foot berms here. And here are a few artist renderings of what the pad will look like. This is from 47th and Tuscany, looking southwest. The top picture is just what it'll look like with the drilling rig and the sound walls up, which is what most people notice first when drilling starts. The second photo is what the facility looks like with no landscaping or berming in, and the final picture is what it'll look like once the trees are planted and the berms are built. And here's another rendering from looking southeast on the pad from the Peakview neighborhood. And here is from 37th Street, kind of while you're driving into the city. As you can see, there's already a lot of natural landscaping and blockage there. So on the very last picture, it's pretty hard to see kind of anything on our pad. So now I'll just get into a little bit about oil and gas and what sort of best management practices we're going to be bringing to the T-bone pad. So the drilling part of the process takes about 3 to 6 days. We've actually shortened it to about 2 to 4 days per well. And this is what most people notice. First thing they notice is the drilling rig going up. Once that's done, we're expecting about 2 months for the T-bone pad to finish drilling. The completion crew will go in, and this is where the hydraulic fracturing happens, and that usually takes about 2 to 4 days per well also. And then we bring in a workover rig to just kind of clean everything out, do the last construction, and that takes about another 2 to 4 days per well. And then once that's all done, we reclaim the pad as much as we can to the natural, what it was before, and the well produces for about 20 to 30 years. And once that's done, the wells are plugged and everything is gone back to the way it was before. So to get a little more specific into the drilling, we're going to bring an electric rig in here, something that Extraction pioneered in the basin. And we'll also be bringing in the sound walls, which have already been mentioned a couple times. It's another thing Extraction has pioneered in the basin. And with the electric rig, it'll get rid of the really loud diesel generators, which should, obviously reduce sound, but it'll also, no diesel emissions or anything going on while we're drilling. We've also got new kind of LED lights that we hang on the inside of the sound walls, and also on the tower, we are able to point them kind of straight down to help mitigate any extra light escaping the pad and going into neighbors' houses. Once that's done, we start the completion process. And this is just the fracturing process where we establish communication from the well that we drilled about 7,000 feet down, just to kind of shoot holes, open the communication between the reservoir and the wellbore pipe. And with this process, we're bringing in lay flat pipe for water, so there won't be any trucking of water for this location, which will get rid of thousands of truck trips while we're fracking. Another thing we also help Liberty pioneer is this sandbox system to bring sand into location, which that was actually the loudest part of the completion process, was trucks coming in and having to use big air pumps to blow sand from their trucks into our containers. It would take a couple hours per truck, slow us way down. But with this new sandbox system, it's much quieter. Trucks are in and out in just a couple of minutes, so we can go a whole lot faster and kind of, our goal is to get in, operate safely, and get out with as minimal disturbance as possible. Picture here is also the Liberty Quiet Fleet, which we'll be bringing, which is significantly quieter than the old traditional frac fleets, where on a lot of places on location, you don't even really need ear protection, it's so quiet. And this is just a quick graph to kind of show, just from 2016 to 2019, how extractions, our goal is to get out as fast as possible while we're drilling. And we've already cut our total time per well for drilling completion to get it onto production from 22 days all the way down to less than 10 days as a company. And once the drilling and completion is done, for the majority of the life of the pad, we'll have our facility there producing the oil. And with this system, everything is completely closed loop here. There won't be any flaring or anything like that. We will also have an oil pipeline here, which will significantly reduce truck traffic once the wells are producing. We've also got gas pipeline here, and we will be trucking to produce water, but it should be pretty minimal after the first couple months. And while this is going, we have several phases of separation to get as much gas as we possibly can from the oil and sell it in the completely closed loop system. And the very, very small amount that we can't sell, we put it to our emission control devices, which totally incinerate the gas. Our machines work 99.9% efficient for that very small amount of gas to completely get rid of it. And we also have a fully automated 24-hour system that we can control anywhere. We'll also have a couple people going to location every single day to just check on things, make sure things are going good. Just a little bit about air quality. I forgot to mention, on that facility we'll also have electric power from the utility to power everything on location. We won't have any generators or diesel generators or anything like that, which would significantly help with emissions and noise. And here, just a little bit about our air quality. Like I said, we had completely closed loop system. Since we'll have the pipeline here, this gets rid of probably the biggest source of emissions was just trucks driving up and connecting to the oil tank and opening the thief hatches, things like that. So none of that will be happening. We've also got a pretty robust LDAR system where we've purchased a few of these infrared cameras. They're about $100,000 each, and they're so powerful you can see the fumes coming off of a permanent marker if you take the cap off. So we have a few teams that go out to our pads every single day. With new pads, it's a couple times a month for about the first 6 months, and then it slows down to about once a month to once every couple months in the first few years of the facility life. And we just look at absolutely every connection, every valve, everything we possibly can, just to make sure there aren't any leaks or anything like that. And just a little bit more about the pad. We've estimated about $42 million worth of tax revenue will be generated, and about 80% of that will be made in the first 5 years of the pad. That includes about $21 million for Greeley and Evans Public Schools and other schools around the state. And just a little bit more about us and our awards. We've reached over 1.5 million hours without a recordable safety incident as a company as of the beginning of the year. So that's only gotten bigger. And that's all I had. If you guys had any questions.
Great, thank you. We'll be with you in a few minutes with some questions if we have some. Thank you. The public hearing, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to oppose this issue? Assuming since no one spoke up to oppose it, you have nothing to rebut, so I think we'll move on from that. Council, are there any questions of the city staff or of the applicant?
We do have a couple of questions.
I have one quick question, and it's probably really ridiculous, but I don't know. So when you say right in, right out, that means you can only turn right in and only turn, okay, just making sure. I was like, I think I know what you mean, but I live right there, so I understand how bad traffic is, so I appreciate that, thank you.
No left turns in or out.
That's what I
But
thought.
I think that's a suggestion, because there isn't going to be any kind of road median or anything preventing them from turning left.
Right.
That's
It
correct.
is enforceable.
So my question, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of feeding off the road issue, because I also have questions about that. What kind of, number one, what kind of an entryway are they proposing, are you guys proposing on building? Is it going to be a blacktop, or is it going to be, typical oil and gas where it's more of a road base or rocks or whatever to prevent any kind of mud from coming onto our roadway? That's my first question.
Right, so they will put down tracking control. I believe they've proposed cattle guards. So the internal drive surface will be an aggregate material, and then the cattle guards to prevent tracking onto city roads.
Okay, so the cattle guards, after time, they do fill up. Are they planning on making sure that the cattle guards are kept clean and cleaned out so that it doesn't track on our roads?
Councilman Spear, we can have the applicant address that, what their maintenance plan would be.
Okay, and so if we were to build, let's say, an apartment building there, we would have impact fees towards the roads. Is the applicant going to give us any kind of an impact fee or help with building the road, because it will be impacted by truck travel?
Sure, some of those items will be discussed through that development agreement process, which will come before you in about 90 days. But they are doing the cash in lieu for the sidewalk, and there will be some streetlights that they'll be participating with, and working with engineering will determine what and if any development impact fees for the road improvements will be needed.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
She pretty much took all my questions. I have no questions now.
Good job, Laura.
Other questions of the applicant or staff?
I have none. They answered my questions because I went to that community event that you had, and they were all very nice and helpful.
It sounds like you've already anticipated the planned improvements on 42nd or 47th and 37th Street and the additional requirements for right-of-way. I noted the other day when I was driving down 47th Avenue that there seems to be already a pipeline fairly close to where I figured if we widen the road, it would be right there on, and I'm not sure if it's a gas and oil pipeline or if it's has something to do with the gentleman's irrigation system. So I'm glad that you guys are already planning to take all that stuff into consideration with this project.
Yep, and Councilman Neal, one of the items that we need to remember is once this is up and running, there will be the limited water trucks that will come in and out of the property. But the product that's produced here, everything will be leaving by pipeline. So there will be the occasional passenger cars coming to the site every day. But after it's up and operating, there will be very little traffic generated from the site.
I actually do have a comment. So speaking of that, I know that light there at 37th and 47th Street, if you're coming on from 47th onto 37th, that light sometimes does not last very long for people to turn left or right. Is there going to be some adjustment to that traffic and control based on the increased traffic coming from the oil and gas, trucks coming in and out, where that can be adjusted to allow traffic to flow off of 47th a lot easier without having to get backed up?
I will definitely take your suggestion and we'll talk about that issue with staff to make sure that there's enough time.
Yeah, and I can tell you, we do have budgeted to upgrade the sensor, so it's similar to the sensor at the current one at 65th Avenue and 37th Street, which is much more, sees even through snow and some fog as well.
Right.
We have had some difficulty there at 47th Avenue and under some weather conditions.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff or the applicant?
None.
None, I'll close the public hearing and ask for council discussion.
I am totally in support of this.
I am absolutely in support of it. I know Extraction is a great company. I think they're going to be great to work with here in the city of Evans. I think it's a great project for our city, and I do like the berms and the trees and the noise, and I think it's going to work out just fine where it is. I think it's going to be great. So I'm very much in favor of it.
Likewise, I think, living right there, there obviously were some concerns, and I'll be the very first to admit that I don't know a ton about oil and gas, but your presentation was phenomenal, and I appreciate your attention to detail and really your attention to safety. As a mom, that's my number one concern, and to see a company like you come into Evans and really pride yourself on safety is commendable. So thank you very much. Our citizens, I'm sure, thank you for that as well.
Any other comments?
I'm in favor.
I just want to say thank you very much, gentlemen. I think it'll be a great partnership. I do believe oil and gas is a great partnership for our community and our people, and the safety that is utmost concern for people. It's been proven, and most recently with tests shown that you guys are very on top of public safety. So anyways, I'm totally excited about the project, and thank you very much for thinking about Evans and wishing to come to Evans.
I do have kind of a question for you, but it's kind of off subject. City manager and myself went on a tour with SRC Energy once to one of their wells. Do you guys do something similar to that, where the council could come and kind of see it firsthand? Do you guys do something like that?
Yeah.
That would be great. I think the council might like doing that. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, great.
If there's no other discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 28-2019 as proposed with the amended conditions of approval and development standards.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve resolution number 28-2019 as proposed with the conditions of approval and development stage. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item 10, report city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to share a couple of our ongoing public education efforts regarding our road conditions. First of all, our schedules are filling up for the month of November and into December with public meetings, both with HOAs and also with our own boards and commissions. I know our staff continues to talk with more HOAs and other community groups to try to schedule more meetings, but those are a few of them that are scheduled. We're starting to divide and conquer as staff and get out and have these conversations. I also want to share another piece that's in the works. This is our second mailer. Mailers are a significant investment, but we think they're important. We've heard some good feedback from folks where we are trying to just really plant seeds and make sure that the community has several different ways of hearing about the condition of our streets. And while the council has not committed to a sales tax measure for next spring, we are letting the community know about this as a potential solution for that issue. We're starting to use more and more testimonials from residents. And I believe Lance Snow, our communications and community engagement manager, has several videos already produced. He's also connecting with residents for pieces like this. This is a quote from Laura Castillo and her, I believe, daughter, residents of the Riverside neighborhood. This is a draft. You can see there's still a couple things that we're going to add, but I just wanted to kind of give you a flavor for the work that we're doing on the important topic here. This, if you could also show, I don't know if we have the other side, but this piece is also produced in Spanish for those who prefer that. We want to make sure that we're connecting with all segments of our community. So just wanted to share those couple pieces. This piece will also be adapted for the utility bill and the Evans Express coming up for those who might not see the piece in their mail. We've also done a piece for the last utility bill. You might have seen that we consider more of a good news report where we're showing and demonstrating follow through on projects like 35th Avenue, the 31st Street Service Road realignment. Sorry about that. And also pavement management efforts that we had this summer. So we're using all the channels that we have. You'll be seeing more of those videos on social media, as well as more kind of demonstrations of the work that we're doing in the field. So we're trying to move this forward with the time that we have in advance of any campaign that may take place next spring. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. City Attorney.
Mayor and members of council, I've been gone on vacation the last couple of weeks, so not a lot to update, except that we anticipate we'll have the new assistant city attorney in place around December 9th, and we'll bring them to the meeting so that you can meet them.
Thank you, Scott. We're glad you had a great trip. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is executive session. I would entertain a motion.
I move to go into an executive session to receive legal advice on risk management claim updates pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 subsection 4 subsection B, and to discuss the performance evaluation of the city manager pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 section 4 subsection F.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes. Thank you.
Aye,
everyone.
thank you. Have a good night.
Keep an eye on that one.
Yes. Absolutely. And she was like, I was like, oh, she's gonna make a motion. Never mind.
Got it?
I know.
What's that?
Okay. Since it feels
Laura
like
just took,
When you see those
I don't have any questions now.
you don't know if they're going to be long or short.
The only question I was gonna ask had nothing to do with their project, so I didn't want to ask, but I wanted to see when they applied for their permit with the state, how hard it was.
yeah.
That's a good.
But I didn't want to.
Well, according to the presentation at the Town and Country,
It was real hard.
it was real hard.
They said that they would, after they went through, that they would put everything back to its normal, how it was pre. I was like, you guys have a corn?
I think, but I would have thought, I think they would apply for this a year ago before all that had happened. We got-
Just,
Ready to close it.
You wanna?
We got that.
I would say it's not on the screen, but
I know, it's the worst road.
You know, and they're really into helping, you know, communities with things, so what happened with that road? It's kind of like, I mean, you know, when they're building rec centers and things like that, I mean, help us with a road.
I'll note for the record, it is now 7:52 and we are now in executive session.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, we'll do the first item, the item A first, which is an update on a notice of claim. This item results from a very serious automobile accident that occurred involving a city police car probably a year and a half ago.
January 2018.
January 2018, so a year ago. And so tonight we just want to we have an update and a tentative agreement from our insurance carrier that we want to let you know about. But first, since this has been some time, I'm not sure that the entire council is familiar with this issue or this incident. Thought I would ask Rick Brandt to just give a brief recap of the incident so that council knows what happened and kind of what some of the follow-up has been on the city's part. And then I also want to just introduce Kurt Bodette, who you may not know. Kurt is our safety and risk manager who's been with us now for a number of months and has been managing this claim for us. And then following Rick's recap of the incident, I believe Scott can kind of give us the update on the settlement that we are here to hear about tonight. Rick?
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, Mayor, Council. So this crash occurred. It was an on-duty officer. The officer was at the time actually eastbound on 37th, saw a traffic violator westbound, observed two violations, a burned out headlight and excessive speed. So the officer got down to the nearest break in the median, turned around and tried to accelerate to catch up with the violator westbound. The officers are trained to try to catch up with violators and get a license plate before they activate their overheads, just in case they run. And so in this case, the officer was proceeding westbound at a relatively high rate of speed. The officer went through a controlled intersection. It was flashing yellow for east and westbound traffic on 37th. There was a vehicle southbound on a flashing red at 29th. That vehicle was driven by a young lady and there was other occupants in the car. Because of a large hedgerow blocking the officer's view of her car and her view of the officer's car, neither of them saw the other coming. The vehicle that was westbound in front of the officer crossed the intersection at a high rate of speed. The witnesses in the car all testified to that and assumed it was then clear, so they proceeded out and the officer was unable to stop, and it was a rather serious accident.
It was also late at night.
Yeah, it was, I think, close to 2 in the morning. Yeah, there was virtually no traffic. I mean, the officer was doing what we trained them to do, but it didn't really demonstrate due care entering that controlled intersection. And I'll let Scott get into some of the details of the claim or injury claims, but as a result of that, we called on Colorado State Patrol to conduct the investigation, just have an impartial police agency do it. The officer was subsequently charged with a violation of careless driving resulting in an injury, and was pled guilty to that, or he was convicted of that. Received some community service. As is our protocol for any accident involving a police officer on duty, whether it's a scratch bumper or a major collision, we have a very extensive review process, an internal review process for crashes. So it starts with the accident or the sergeant on scene, and it goes through a command review all the way up to me. In this case, we found that the officer violated our policy and state law on entering a controlled intersection with due care. And as a result, we opened an internal investigation, and the officer was sustained for that violation. As a result, the officer received a rather substantial suspension, and also was ordered to take additional driving classes, both defensive and high-speed driving. That was on top of the annual driving we do every year with officers. And the officer clearly has demonstrated a great deal of remorse. I think this changed his life. He realized how close he came to taking a human life and potentially losing his own. I think it was a growth opportunity for this young man. And I believe he's definitely learned his lesson. And it's been difficult for the entire agency because the young lady that was seriously hurt was really seriously hurt. So we're not in the business to hurt people, but it's one of those unfortunate crashes. Happy to answer any questions about the accident I can. I beg your pardon. Yes, it was taken down. You know, there's still not great visibility there, but what they did do was, I think they took that intersection off the four-way flash, and they also put up a no right turn on red for southbound. So it's no longer on that. It's not a great visibility intersection anyway because of the contour of the roadway. So I think that was the safest thing we could do, was just fully control it.
So the claim was turned over, the filed a notice of claim against the city, and the claim was turned over to the city's insurance carrier. Insurance carrier assigned counsel Gordon Vaughn, who you may recall has been in front of you to discuss. He handled the early part of the Eastwood Village litigation, and Gordon evaluated the claim, and the insurance company did from the outset, and thought that there was a lot of exposure to the city, and thought that it was appropriate to offer the maximum coverage under the Governmental Immunity Act. Under the Governmental Immunity Act, in situations like this, the person that's hurt can claim on an individual basis up to, well, it used to be $350,000. Now it's crept up because there's an inflationary increase worked into it to $387,000 as the maximum recovery. And they recommended early on that be offered in this case. And it's just taken the victim's counsel a while to say, yeah, we'll take that. And that's what the offer is from the insurance company. The victim's counsel has indicated they will accept that. We wanted to bring it to council to make sure that you were aware of the way that this incident has been resolved. It doesn't actually require your approval because under your policy, you technically could say, no, we're not going to let the insurance company settle it for that. But if you do it, if you were to do that and the actual claim came back and it was more than the $387,000, then that would come out of the city's pockets. You know, as a practical matter, the insurance company has the right to settle this claim and is elected to do it for the maximum cap. And we wanted to alert you to that fact. There was a second claim, notice of claim, that was filed in the case by one of the passengers in the vehicle, Mr. Medina. And he is represented by Frank Azar's office. They have a sort of a well-known habit of ignoring cases for a long, long time, and we haven't heard anything more. The insurance counsel has not heard anything more from that claimant, even though they've tried to reach out to him to get that part resolved as well. Mr. Medina's injuries were not nearly as extensive as Ms. Astudillo's, so it's not anticipated that there will be as large of a settlement there, and it certainly, again, would be within the cap under the Governmental Immunity Act. So as far as her claim, she has already incurred medical expenses that are the greater portion of that $387,000. So if it wasn't for the Governmental Immunity Act, it probably would have been a much larger settlement. But that's the circumstances of the settlement. I don't know if there's anything else that staff want me to discuss there, or if, obviously, if council have any questions, I'd be glad to address those. All right.
Isn't it fortunate?
Yeah.
It's for everyone involved. It's my understanding that these were young.
Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of experience. So it's very upsetting. It's upsetting that she had that kind of count, but she does have the injuries. they came out with as much of a learning.
It was a tough thing, and it's not any consolation at all, but the car the officer was trying to go after was found later abandoned. It was stolen.
So there's not any action to be taken by council on this, as I mentioned. Unless there's other questions, we'll go on to the next executive session.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good night.
Oh, man, what's about this guy?
Yeah. Thanks. So it is that time of year for the city manager's evaluation. The mayor and I, for your process, the mayor is the contact for the process with me, and talk about process. We thought it might be a good first step. This is a short one tonight, 5 minutes from me. You can, of course, talk tonight, or I think the mayor might thoughts. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to give a short overview, kind of as I see how the year went, and with some detail. The memo, there's a memo on the front page, and then just an update on the annual work plan, which I know you've seen a couple times, which you can see kind of the status of each of the items that we have working on this year. So I will just leave you with a couple thoughts. I've had a lot of fun in year 3 working with you. As I think about kind of balcony level where we are and where I think we are in terms of my time here, year 1 was really a time of getting to know people in the organization, people in the community, getting to know the community itself and the issues. Year 2 was really a time of working with you to set priorities, know what's most important, get into the weeds on what those highest, what the highest priority issues were, start working on them, and also work through the organization. You know, there has been significant transition for staff for lots of reasons. You know, some are just normal transition turnover. Some, you know, I don't doubt have made choices given the new leader, and that happens with the new leader. Priorities and culture change and things like that. I think year 3, this past year, was really a year for resolving a lot of the longstanding were identified as high priority. Also, reorganizing and establishing the new organization, you know, with the reorganization that happened, so that we can meet the priorities that you set, and I think what some of our biggest issues are for the future. And also to really start, I think, advancing the drivers, like economic development, like the residential development that are resulting from the engagement that we've had with the community, some of the staff that we've hired, conversations that we've been out having with developers. We're starting to see some of the fruits of that. And I think year 4 will just be, pushing those forward further, really kind of starting to hopefully see some of the fruits of the efforts that we've had in terms of the major capital work that we have, stormwater, to roads, to parks, things happening there, economic development, hopefully being able to follow through with the developer that we found property, see some of those houses and other development happen doing so those are kind of the high-level themes that I'm seeing. I want to just point up a few of the specifics. I certainly won't read through but some of the bullet points, as I was just kind of going back over my notes from the year, just mention the development, identifying that master developer for Graham's Diner site and moving toward demolition of properties, which we really do believe will show better, will be able to improve properties. Working, kind of managing, leading this staff efforts and Eastwood Village for us this year, negotiating and resolving the Tuscany non-pod system. I think we have most of the stakeholders feeling pretty good about as we kind of work through that. Longstanding Ashcroft Heights drainage channel issue that I heard about in my first weeks here. Also, we're able to close out some of the grants that we've had from the MPO Avenue project and the 31st realignments. Those were grants that we've had for some time. CDOT has been expecting us to finish them out. A couple of those projects, but I believe that we finished them in good fashion, and we're building relationships with the MPO to help us, have more of that funding in the future. A couple big projects that you know well about. I think the city council's decisions on this were significant this past year. The discussions about retail cannabis and public meetings that we had, find some path forward there on that issue. Producing, I think the first State of the City event helps us with our relationships with really helps, I think, communicate to our community all of what we're doing in one place. I think we hear about things all, various venues, but that was a really good event to put a finer point on it. Some of the work in the organization with the reorganization, seeing some benefits from the new stormwater management. Still showing the 5-year, work with council to take your direction to get a lot done, plus set aside some additional reserves for potential oil and gas fluctuations. So that's my, I guess, more than five minutes, but just highlights for the year. I've just got 8 minutes of production. So
we might have 5, but now I'm sorry.
So I'll leave you with this for the week. The next few weeks, I think the mayor might have some comments about process. I'll leave the room. I'll also be forwarding this to you electronically so you can have it and look through it. And there are some, you'll note that a few of the projects and priorities still have some more to do, which is good for next year. But I think we have to be here.
You're going to be here next year.
I hope so.
Hey, Jeff, just real quick, I just want to say, I do appreciate
So what's the thing on here that you're proud of this year? Yeah. Before we talk about you.
Right. I have to say, the Tuscany non-pot project was probably, it's not the biggest dollar, but it is probably the stickiest, one of the stickiest and longest tailed issues that we had when I first came.
Like, what are you?
I think there were a couple things.
I think they're important, we might not, but for
Right.
I put him on the spot.
I think we're right
Just wait a
here.
minute.
There were a couple.
Brian, it was nice to
Well,
meet you. Really.
one that I still hope can happen is, and I've been talking with the Mayor Pro Tem on it. I think helping the council feel comfortable, confident with the upcoming potential campaign. I really had hoped and still would like to have some kind of off city council meeting discussion for questions answered, hearing from some elected officials, from the area, maybe who've done this before. That's one thing, just in terms of the council role. I know Scott will have a lot of advice, and that's one issue that I hope that we still can do, that I hope that we could have done by now. Hopefully more time.
So you started off, your first year was can you do that really quick?
It's important to remember that I'm glad to have a day job. I'm not singing for other parts of my life.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, just give us a few minutes. Sure. That's all I need.
We know what we really think.
That's for the next meeting. So here's where we're at, guys. I think we've all done this before. I don't, you have not. So the process, the way it goes, I had talked to Julie Rader today. I have 2 of the 3 forms she was able to get this afternoon. One, what other city managers are making right now. Also have what Jim started at 2. Just so you know, this is about Jim's compensation. I figured you did, so. We'll fill out an evaluation form. So what I said, I had 2 of the 3 forms. That was the one form I did not get. You'll be getting an email from me if she finds it in the next day or 2. So I might write one out myself. Couple of side notes on that. We were going to be doing this at the next city council. I found out about 4 hours ago I will be in Chicago. But we will give you all your paperwork. So the only thing I'd like to do a little bit different this year than we've done in the past, you're going to get a form where we're going to fill out. So you'll be getting that. One thing I want to add, I'll add it as the last question on is, what are your thoughts on compensation? What are each individual person's thoughts? So the process for you going forward. And in executive session. What are your thoughts now on that? I think he does great here. I think we're all in agreement. I think it's not. There were some good people on here. Yeah. I can say, you guys, Jim, best thing I've done being on city council. That'll be time for that discussion. It'll be December. I will give you guys my word. I'll probably take the one Julie does get to me. Please give me your feedback.
I can get one.
I can get a 1 on it. Good stuff. So that's the process we're gonna do. I talked to Jim. I think it is in our city code that we were needing to do this in November. Anything we do doesn't take place until January. That's where we're at. I will get everybody those emails I do. That'll be the first meeting on this.
I won't in the next
Yeah, so I did explain that. I didn't know about it till, I don't even know if I knew that.
I think, yeah, I think you found out just before. Yeah.
Any questions on the process? Anybody like to add?
Just one note, and obviously the forms and all of that are confidential,
Yes,
so.
everything in executive session. When do you get back?
I get back to 17th.
Okay. This we're talking about now won't be till this is the first meeting.
We're gonna discuss it in
Executive session, that's how we do it.
Yes.
We will go into executive session, we'll go over all with Scott, we'll go over all of our forms, all of our.
Yeah, but I mean, we're gonna discuss.
Correct, this is something I'm taking there for the whole time.
Form.
You'll have the form before, you'll have the form by the end of the week.
I'm not gonna be.
Yep. No, you have till, technically you would have till December 2nd to get the form back. So I want to get those ready for you. Else on that subject? All right, we'll move forward.
Yeah. I have learned how to. Well, I did the math, it's 10,000 down to what it is per hour.
Yes. Okay. Can we do the discussion? No luck, but we'll talk to you next year.
That was a short one.
I had already talked to Jim about it.
I've been watching out for Ann.
Right, after that.
We told her to keep it quiet for a while.
Right. At least get through the next couple weeks.